You are about to enter a labyrinth of thought, a maze from which there is no easy escape. Every turn is a paradox, every path a mind-bending contradiction that pulls at the very fabric of what you believe to be real. What if the world you know is not as solid as it appears? What if your own mind is betraying you, forcing you to live in an eternal cycle of thought, thoughts that forget to forget? How can you trust your own memories if they keep slipping away? The paradox of a mind that forgets to forget. Imagine for a moment that your brain is a vast library. Each memory is a book stored neatly upon a shelf, a record of who you are, of what you've lived through. But now picture that the books you've read do not stay closed. They flicker, vanish, and return, often in a disordered fashion. Books you once knew intimately now are not as clear. One day you remember meeting a person, but the next their name is just out of reach. Now think of it this way. Your mind is supposed to forget. Forgetting is a tool of survival, of mental clarity. It is meant to clear the clutter so that the essential can remain. But what happens when you cannot forget? What happens when each memory clings to you like a shadow, reminding you of things you no longer need, things you never wanted to recall? The mind that forgets to forget is not a mind that holds on to everything. No, it is a mind that cannot distinguish between what must be preserved and what should be discarded. There is no peace, no sense of release. You live your days surrounded by the remnants of every moment you've ever experienced. Each time you recall a memory, it's not just an echo of the past. It's a physical sensation, an itch that never fades. Every recollection replays until you wonder, when does the past end, and when does the present truly begin? To understand this paradox, we must dive deeper into the workings of memory. Neuropsychologists have long noted that our minds are designed to forget the mundane, the trivial, the unnecessary. But what if the mechanisms that allow for this are broken? The hippocampus, the region of the brain responsible for memory, forms a delicate balance between what to keep and what to release. It is a constant negotiation between the past and the present. But what happens if this delicate system breaks down? When it forgets to forget, you become trapped in a loop, endlessly revisiting the same memories, no matter how much time passes, no matter how much you wish they would slip into the abyss. You can never escape the relentless reminder of things you wish were gone. Each thought is an echo of something that should have been silenced long ago. The noise of your own existence becomes unbearable. But here's the question that haunts you. If the mind cannot forget, then can it truly forgive? Think for a moment. Forgiveness is predicated on forgetting. To forgive is to release, to free yourself from the chains of past hurt. But what happens when the mind holds onto everything? When it refuses to let go? Can you still forgive if the memory of pain is as vivid today as it was when it first occurred? Can you heal when you are never allowed the release that forgetting brings? It's not just about memory. It's about control. The mind that forgets to forget is no longer in control of itself. Every fleeting thought, every image, every detail of your life clings to you, drags you back into old wounds and old joys. It is as though your past is refusing to let you grow, to move forward. You become imprisoned in the very memories that should define you, but now they only serve to confuse and overwhelm you. Your existence becomes an endless cycle of recollection, a relentless replaying of moments that are no longer relevant. And as you attempt to break free from this mental prison, you realize there is no way out, no key to the cage, no escape from the endless loop. As you try to comprehend the mind that forgets to forget, you are drawn into the realization that perhaps it's not just memories that linger. Perhaps it's you who is lingering. Are you more than the sum of your experiences, or are your memories the very thing that makes you who you are? The paradox deepens. The more you try to escape, the more you realize that the mind that forgets to forget is not just a broken mechanism. It is you. It is your very identity, locked in place by the very memories you cannot release. If you forget everything, do you still exist? If you cannot forget, are you still yourself? It's not just the pain of remembering, it's the sheer weight of it. The feeling that the past is alive, that it is suffocating you. The suffocating feeling of being trapped in your own head. The darkness of endless thought, looping again and again, a self-contained nightmare with no beginning and no end. And here lies the cruelest twist. The more you seek to escape the past, the more it shapes your future. The mind that forgets to forget is never free. It is always under siege by itself. No matter how much you wish to move on, to let go, you are bound to your own consciousness. The more you try to release, the more it clings to you like gravity, pulling you back to the place you most want to escape. This is the cruel truth. You are not trapped in the past by what you have forgotten. You are trapped by what you cannot forget. And perhaps, just perhaps, it's not the memory that haunts you. It's the mind itself, breaking free from the very act of forgetting. As you drift deeper into this realization, a simple question arises, echoing in your thoughts. If the mind cannot forget, does it even understand what it means to be free? The paradox of infinite regress. You stand at the edge of a vast, endless staircase. Each step before you stretches infinitely into the distance, and as you look back, the steps behind you seem to stretch equally far. There is no beginning, no end, just an eternal sequence of steps leading nowhere and everywhere. How did you get here? Where do you go from here? This is the essence of infinite regress. The notion that any explanation requires an explanation itself, leading to an endless chain of causes and effects, a loop with no true origin. It's like standing in front of a mirror, only to see another mirror reflecting you endlessly. Each reflection goes on forever, and you begin to lose sight of where you end and where the next reflection begins. The more you look, the more you realize that no matter how far you go, you cannot escape the reflection of yourself. Each step forward simply mirrors the one before. At first, this might seem like a harmless puzzle, an abstract concept reserved for philosophers and mathematicians. But what if this paradox is not just a theoretical exercise? What if it is a profound truth about the way we live, the way we understand the world, and the way we understand ourselves? In our everyday lives, we often seek answers to big questions about existence, meaning, and purpose. But each answer leads to another question, a deeper inquiry that exposes the limitations of the answers we've already found. You think you've solved the puzzle of life, only to realize that the pieces keep shifting, expanding, and multiplying, like an infinitely large mosaic that never reveals its final form. Now, let's consider the implications of infinite regress in relation to the universe itself. Everything we see around us is bound by the laws of causality. Every event, every effect has a cause, something that set it into motion. But what happens if this chain of causality is infinite? What if the cause of everything we know is itself dependent on something that came before it, and that something is dependent on something further back, and so on infinitely? Where does this chain end? Does it have a beginning, or is it simply a never-ending cycle of causes and effects? This is the trap of infinite regress. As soon as you think you've reached the foundation, the base of all things, you realize that there is another layer beneath it, another cause waiting to be discovered. The search for the first cause, the ultimate beginning, becomes a futile task. No matter how deep you dig, you are always left with another layer, another cause, another step to climb. It's like peeling an onion that never ends, layer after layer, only to find that there's no core, no center, no resolution. The paradox grows even darker when we consider the nature of self-awareness. What is the self but a collection of thoughts, memories, and perceptions? We think we know who we are, but upon closer examination, we realize that our understanding of ourselves is built on layers of self-perception, self-reflection, and self-analysis. And when we dig into the very nature of consciousness, we find that it too is self-referential, always reflecting on itself, trying to understand its own existence. The more we try to understand who we are, the further we fall into a recursive loop, where each layer of understanding only deepens the mystery. Are you the person you believe yourself to be, or are you simply a reflection of the person you think you should be? Can you ever truly know yourself, or is your self-awareness nothing more than a series of reflections, one after another, each one dependent on the one before it? The more you think about it, the more you realize that you are trapped in your own mind, a mirror reflecting another mirror with no escape. The paradox of infinite regress is not just an intellectual puzzle. It is a deep, existential horror. The realization that no answer is final, that every solution is merely a stepping stone to another question, is deeply unsettling. You may never arrive at the truth, because the truth itself is endlessly deferred, slipping through your fingers like sand. As you attempt to escape this mental labyrinth, you are confronted with the harshest of truths. The more you search for answers, the more questions you create. The deeper you go, the further away you get from anything resembling the truth. And now, here, the lingering question that will haunt you long after the paradox fades. If every answer requires another question, can you ever truly know anything at all? The paradox of time's illusion. Time is the silent thread that binds everything together. It flows steadily, unbroken from the past to the future, dragging everything with it. It feels real, doesn't it? You look at the clock, you see the hands move, you age, and you watch the seasons change. Time is the constant, the universal truth that we all share. But what if this shared experience of time is nothing more than an illusion? Consider this. You live your life as though time is a river flowing from past to present to future. But the more you examine time, the more it slips through your fingers like water. You cannot hold it, you cannot stop it. It moves forward relentlessly, and yet it seems to have no substance. What is time really? Is it just a mental construct, a way for your mind to impose order on the chaos of existence? Or is it something more, something that we can never truly grasp? Imagine for a moment that time does not flow in one direction, but rather exists as an all-encompassing present, like a vast, unchanging landscape where every moment exists simultaneously forever. You are not moving through time. Time is moving through you. What you perceive as the past is not gone, and what you think of as the future is already here. It's all happening at once, in an eternal now. This is not a theory confined to philosophy. Physicists like Einstein have proposed that time, as we understand it, is simply an illusion, a perception based on the limitations of human consciousness. The idea that time is a linear progression is comforting. It gives us structure, meaning, and purpose. But what if that comfort is false? What if the idea of the future is nothing more than a projection, an illusion created by our minds to cope with the chaos around us? And what if the past isn't gone at all? What if it exists, not as a memory, but as a place, just as real, just as vivid as the present moment? This is the paradox of time's illusion. We live our lives believing that time is moving us forward, but the truth is that we are simply perceiving it in a way that makes sense to our limited consciousness. The past, the present, and the future are not distinct from one another. They are all part of the same eternal whole. There is no flow, no river, only a still, unchanging moment in which everything exists all at once. To experience this paradox fully, let's consider the way memories work. You look back on your past and you experience it as though it happened in a different time, years ago, a lifetime ago. But that experience is just as real to you now as it was in the moment it occurred. The memory is not a static image. It is alive, re-experienced in the present moment with the same intensity of feeling, the same clarity of detail. The past is not a distant place. It is right here, right now within you. And if the past is not gone, then can we truly say that time has passed at all? Now turn your gaze to the future. You imagine what is to come and you make plans, you set goals. You live as though the future is something that is ahead of you, waiting to unfold. But what if the future is already here? What if your thoughts about the future are simply echoes of what has always been? Are you walking toward the future, or are you merely walking in circles, trapped in a present that has no true boundaries? This idea shakes the very foundation of how we perceive reality. If time is not linear, if it is not moving forward but existing all at once, then what is it that we are really experiencing? Are we experiencing time at all, or are we trapped in an endless loop of perception, unable to see beyond the veil of our own consciousness? It gets darker still. If time is not real, then neither is memory nor expectation. The future is not something to look forward to, and the past is not something to escape. All we ever have is this moment. And yet, this moment is fleeting, slipping through our fingers, just like the time we think we have. You are trapped in a reality where the past and future are just as elusive as the present. No matter where you look, no matter how hard you try to grasp it, time will slip away, leaving you with nothing but the awareness that you can never truly hold it. And this, dear reader, is the cruel truth. If time is an illusion, then what are we but illusions too? This question will linger, unresolved, as you continue to move through your life, chasing after a future that is not there, trying to hold onto a past that never truly left. Time will continue to be your companion, but it will never be what you think it is. Now, as you stand at the edge of this paradox, ask yourself, if the future and the past are just illusions, then what is the point of moving at all? The paradox of perception's prison. You are standing in front of a mirror. The reflection staring back at you is, without a doubt, you. The image is familiar, your face, your clothes, your stance. But the longer you stare, the more unsettling it becomes. Is that really you, or is it just a distortion of what you think you are? How can you trust your own perception of reality when your mind is the one creating it? The paradox begins with this simple question: how much of what you experience is truly reality, and how much of it is a construct of your own mind? You may believe that the world you see is real, that the sounds you hear, the colors you perceive, and the feelings you experience are all direct interactions with the world around you. But what if your senses are lying to you? What if everything you perceive is not the truth but a filtered version of reality, shaped and molded by your own brain? Our perception of the world is limited and subjective. We see only a small fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum, hear a limited range of sounds, and feel only a narrow band of physical sensations. Even our memories are often unreliable, distorted by time and emotions. What you think you know about the world, about yourself, is merely an interpretation of sensory data, processed by a mind that is far from objective. But does this make the reality you experience any less real? Is your perception the prison in which your mind is trapped? This is the paradox of perception's prison. What you experience is your reality, but that reality may be far from the truth. Imagine that you could somehow escape the confines of your mind and see the world as it truly is, unfiltered, untamed. What would you see? Would the world still look the same? Or would you be overwhelmed by the flood of unprocessed sensory information? Would you even be able to comprehend it? Or would you be so engulfed by the raw data that your mind would crumble under the weight of it all? Take a moment to consider the limits of your own senses. The colors you see are not absolute. Your eyes only detect certain wavelengths of light, and the colors you experience are the result of your brain interpreting those wavelengths. In reality, color does not exist. It is a construct, a perception generated by your mind. What if the colors you see are not the same as what someone else sees? What if their perception of the world is fundamentally different from yours? Now let's turn to your sense of time. You perceive the world as moving in a linear progression, moments passing from the past into the future. But is time truly linear? What if your mind distorts time, compressing it in some places and stretching it in others? A minute can feel like an hour, and an hour can pass in the blink of an eye. Time, as you know it, may be an illusion, a mental construct that allows you to make sense of the world. But without this construct, could you even perceive time at all? Consider the concept of memory. You remember events from your life, but are those memories accurate? Studies have shown that memories are not static. They are malleable and can be altered by suggestion, by emotion, by the passage of time. Your memories are not faithful records of what happened, but are subjective experiences, reshaped by your mind. Every time you recall a memory, you are not re-experiencing the past, you are recreating it, influenced by your current state, your emotions, and your understanding of yourself. So, how can you trust your own recollections? If memory is unreliable, what about your entire perception of the past? This is the essence of perception's prison. Your mind is not an unbiased observer of the world. It is a filter, a lens through which all of reality is interpreted. But the lens is not perfect. It distorts, manipulates, and shapes reality into something more palatable, more understandable. And so, the question arises, if your perception is flawed, can you ever truly know anything? As you grapple with this idea, you realize that every experience you've ever had, every conversation, every touch, every sight, has been filtered through the lens of your own mind. You are not experiencing the world as it is. You are experiencing the world as your mind has interpreted it. And if your mind is distorted, then so too is your experience of the world. In a sense, you are trapped inside your own mind, unable to escape the prison of perception that shapes your reality. But the question doesn't stop there. If your perception is so unreliable, then can you trust anything at all? Can you trust your own thoughts? Can you trust the people around you, the world you live in, or even the very concept of time itself? Your entire existence is built on a foundation of perception, and yet that foundation is shaky, unreliable, and easily distorted. The more you think about it, the more unsettling it becomes. What if everything you believe to be true is nothing more than a projection of your mind? And so the paradox deepens. If you cannot trust your own perception, can you trust anything at all? If your senses are lying to you, if your memories are distorted, then what is real? Are you even experiencing reality, or are you simply trapped in a prison of your own making? The paradox of the observer effect. You are standing in a darkened room. The only light is the faint glow of a single candle. You bring your hand up to your face, feeling the warmth of the flame against your skin. You watch as the flame flickers and dances, its light flickering and reflecting in your eyes. But as you look closer, you realize that something strange is happening. The flame is not just reacting to the air around it, to the space in which it burns. It is reacting to you. The candle flame shifts in response to your gaze. It flickers differently when you focus on it, moves in a pattern that feels too deliberate, too synchronized with your attention. The paradox begins to emerge. The very act of you observing the flame seems to change its behavior. But the flame doesn't know you're looking at it, right? How could it? It's just a flame. Yet you can't shake the feeling that the moment you focus on it, its nature transforms. This is the paradox of the observer effect. The very act of observation alters the object being observed. What you thought was a passive interaction, simply looking at something, turns out to be a far more active and influential force than you imagined. In physics, this concept is illustrated through experiments like the double-slit experiment, where light behaves differently when it's being observed than when it is. The photons that pass through the slits seem to decide on their path only once they are observed, revealing that the mere act of observation collapses the possibilities into one definitive outcome. Now let's stretch this concept further. What if this paradox is not confined to the realm of particles and photons? What if it applies to your own reality? What if you, the observer, are not merely an outside entity watching the world unfold, but a force shaping that world by the simple act of observing it? The way you perceive everything around you, your relationships, your career, your emotions, isn't just a reflection of an objective reality. Instead, it is the result of your own conscious focus, your awareness, and your attention. You might think you understand the world as it is, that what you see, hear, and feel is an accurate reflection of external reality. But what if your perception of reality is actually a constructed narrative, shaped by the act of observation itself? What if the world only exists in the form you perceive it because your mind, through its act of observing, brings it into being? Consider this. Every time you interact with another person, you bring with you your own perception, your own biases, and your own history. In that interaction, you are not merely observing them. You are shaping how they appear to you. Their words, their actions, they are filtered through the lens of your own expectations, desires, and past experiences. The person you are engaging with is altered in some sense by your act of observation. Now think about this. If you cannot separate the observer from the observed, then is there any such thing as objective reality? If your perception is shaping everything you experience, then is there really a truth outside of your mind? What if reality itself is not some stable, external world waiting to be discovered, but a constantly shifting, malleable construct shaped by the very act of perception? In this way, the paradox grows darker. You are not a passive participant in the world around you. By simply observing, by simply engaging with it, you are actively creating it. The world does not exist independently of your perception. It exists in the form you give it. This is a deeply unsettling thought. You are not simply experiencing reality. You are participating in its creation. Every time you look at something, every time you engage with something, you are shaping it, altering it, molding it in subtle and unconscious ways. And so, the paradox deepens. If everything you observe is altered by your attention, can you ever truly understand anything? Can you trust your own perception of reality when you are the one creating it? What if everything you believe to be true is just an illusion, shaped by your mind, altered by your gaze? As you stand on the precipice of this paradox, you realize the cruel irony. The more you try to understand the world, the more you are trapped in your own creation. The act of observing the world has already shaped it beyond recognition. The observer effect is not just a law of physics, it is a law of perception itself. And in this law, you are not simply an observer, you are a creator. So ask yourself, if you are shaping reality with your own perception, how can you ever truly know the truth? The paradox of self-awareness. You sit in silence, staring at your reflection in the mirror. You see yourself clearly, your face, your body, your eyes staring back at you. You know who you are. But in that moment, a strange thought arises. Who is the I that is observing? The reflection you see is a version of yourself, but you also know that the reflection isn't you. It's just an image. So who is it that is seeing? This is the paradox of self-awareness. You are aware of yourself, but can you ever truly know who you are? You are both the observer and the observed. The very act of being aware of yourself means that your identity is defined not just by your physical being, but by your consciousness, the very awareness that you exist. But can you ever step outside of your own mind to truly understand yourself? Or are you forever trapped within your own perception? The paradox begins with the simple act of self-reflection. You think you know who you are, but how can you be sure? You are, after all, experiencing yourself through the filter of your own mind. Every thought you have, every memory you recall, every emotion you feel is experienced by the same consciousness that is trying to define you. The you that you believe you are may be nothing more than a mental construct, a collection of experiences and perceptions shaped by the mind. To illustrate this, consider the way we form our identity. We define ourselves by our thoughts, our actions, and our interactions with others. But what if these things are not as stable as we think? Your thoughts change from moment to moment, your actions are influenced by countless factors, and your perception of yourself shifts based on your mood and environment. Who then is the real you? Are you the person you were yesterday or the person you are today? Or are you the person you will become tomorrow? Even deeper, if your sense of self is defined by your thoughts and experiences, what happens when your thoughts or memories change? When you wake up each morning, are you still the same person who went to sleep? Are your experiences still yours? Or are they just fragments of a shifting consciousness, trying to piece together a coherent narrative? What if your sense of self is not stable at all, but a fluid, ever-changing construct? Just like a river that seems the same but is constantly flowing and evolving. This is the true horror of self-awareness. You can never step outside yourself to truly understand who you are. Every time you try to observe your own identity, you are bound by the very mind that is constructing that identity. You cannot escape the loop of self-reflection, because the very act of reflecting on yourself alters your understanding of who you are. You are both the subject and the object of your own awareness, forever trapped in a recursive cycle of perception. But the paradox deepens even further. If your sense of self is shaped by your awareness, then who are you when you are unaware of yourself? Are you still you when you are not consciously thinking about your existence? Is the real you the one who is constantly aware, or is it the one who exists in moments of unconsciousness, when you are not observing yourself at all? And if the real you is the person you are when you are not paying attention to yourself, then how can you ever know who you truly are? Consider the possibility that self-awareness is not a gift, but a prison. It forces you to confront the constant shifting of your identity, without ever allowing you to settle on any one version of yourself. Every time you think you've understood who you are, your mind changes the definition. You cannot stand still, because every second you spend looking at yourself is a second that alters the very perception of who you are. And here's the darkest question. If you cannot truly know who you are, can you ever trust your understanding of yourself? How can you trust a mind that is both the observer and the observed, the creator and the creation? Can you ever truly escape the self that is constantly shifting and evolving? Or are you forever trapped in a cycle of self-perception, forever changing and never fully knowing who you are? The paradox of self-awareness leaves you with an unsettling realization. You are both everything and nothing at once. You are the observer, but you are also the observed. The very awareness that defines you is the thing that keeps you from truly understanding yourself. And now, as you stand at the edge of this paradox, a haunting question lingers. If you cannot know yourself, then what are you? The paradox of existence and non-existence. Imagine this. You are standing in the middle of an empty field. No sound, no movement, just stillness. It's the kind of silence that presses in on your senses, leaving you aware of nothing but your own breath. But then, a thought creeps into your mind. What would it be like to not exist? You close your eyes for a moment and imagine it. No consciousness, no awareness, no self. What would it be like to be nothing? The thought lingers, unsettling. And yet, there is a problem. In order to think about nothing, you must exist to think it. So how can nothingness be truly comprehended? The very act of trying to grasp non-existence forces you to exist. This is the paradox of existence and non-existence. You cannot understand or experience non-existence without simultaneously existing to consider it. In other words, your awareness of non-existence is bound to your existence. The very concept of nothingness requires a mind that can perceive it, which means that you, as a conscious being, are inherently tied to existence. To contemplate non-existence is to reaffirm the very existence you are questioning. This paradox challenges our very understanding of what it means to exist. We live our lives, experiencing the world through our senses, interpreting reality through the filter of our consciousness. But what if existence is not as straightforward as it seems? What if existence itself is nothing more than an illusion, a fleeting moment that you are simply aware of, unable to grasp fully? To deepen this paradox, consider the idea that existence is not a static state. It is constantly in flux, constantly changing. The you who is reading this sentence is not the same you who read the first one. Every thought, every action, every breath you take is changing the very fabric of your existence. You are not a fixed entity. You are a series of moments that appear and disappear, and yet, in each of those moments, you exist. But what happens when you begin to question the nature of that existence? If existence is just a fleeting moment, then what happens when it ends? What happens when the concept of you dissolves into the vast nothingness that existed before your consciousness came to be? The very idea of death is terrifying precisely because it represents the dissolution of self, an end to the continuity of existence. But can you truly comprehend an end that is not bound by time, an end that exists outside of the realm of your conscious experience? The paradox deepens when you realize that existence is inextricably linked to non-existence. Without one, the other cannot be understood. You cannot know life without understanding death, and you cannot contemplate death without living through life. The two are intertwined, and each defines the other. But if existence and non-existence are so inseparable, then what does it mean to truly exist? Can you ever truly be if you are always on the verge of becoming nothing? The more you think about it, the more you realize that existence itself is a fragile, tenuous thread. It hangs in the balance between being and non-being. Every moment you live, every breath you take, is a step away from nothingness, but also a step toward it. Life and death are not opposites as we often think, but two sides of the same coin. The more you try to define one, the more you realize that it cannot exist without the other. And here lies the true horror of this paradox. To understand existence, you must also understand that it is fleeting, temporary, and in some ways ultimately meaningless. Your existence, no matter how real it feels, is just one fleeting moment in the grand scheme of things. And yet, that moment is the only thing you have. The question becomes, is existence valuable because it is fleeting, Or is it meaningless because it is bound to disappear? As you grapple with these thoughts, you come to the chilling realization that existence is both a gift and a curse. It is a gift because you are conscious, because you can experience the world, because you can be. But it is a curse because you are constantly aware of its impermanence, of the ever-present shadow of non-existence that looms over every moment. So as you stand at the precipice of this paradox, you are left with one final question. If existence is so fragile, so fleeting, and so bound to non-existence, can you ever truly live? Or are you merely a moment waiting to disappear? The paradox of free will and determinism. You stand at a crossroads. Ahead there are two paths, one leading into the unknown, the other winding back toward what you already know. You feel the weight of the decision hanging on your shoulders. You have the power to choose your path, don't you? You can decide which direction to go, and in that moment you are filled with the profound sense of freedom. This is your choice. You are in control. But then an unsettling thought creeps in. Are you really? What if your choice was always going to be made, no matter what? What if every decision you make is simply the inevitable result of everything that has come before it? Your genes, your upbringing, your past experiences, the very state of the universe at the moment you were born. This is the paradox of free will and determinism. The belief that you are free to make your own choices conflicts with the idea that everything in the universe is governed by causes and effects, making every action, every thought, every decision part of a chain that stretches back to the very beginning of time. If everything has a cause, then can you truly be free to choose? Or are your choices simply the outcome of a series of events that were set in motion long before you were born? To explore this paradox, let's examine the concept of free will. We believe that we have the ability to make decisions independent of external forces, that we can choose our actions freely, based on our desires and intentions. But if we are truly free, then why are so many of our choices influenced by factors beyond our control? Our environment, our biology, our subconscious mind. All of these forces shape the decisions we make, often without us realizing it. How can you be truly free if everything about you is shaped by the world around you? Now consider determinism. The idea that every event, including human actions, is determined by preceding events and natural laws. If determinism is true, then every choice you make was inevitable from the moment the universe began. Your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions are simply the result of a complex chain of cause and effect, stretching from the dawn of time to the present moment. There is no room for free will in this view. Every decision you make was bound to happen, because it was always going to happen. But here, where the paradox becomes truly unsettling, what if both free will and determinism are true? What if, on the one hand, every decision you make is influenced by forces beyond your control, your past, your biology, your environment? Yet, on the other hand, you still feel that you are free to choose, that you are responsible for your actions. How can both of these things be true at the same time? This is the essence of the paradox. You feel free to make choices, and yet everything around you suggests that your choices are the inevitable result of countless causes. It's like being trapped in a maze where you think you are navigating, but every turn you make was preordained, built into the very structure of the maze. You think you are in control, but in reality, the maze is guiding you to where you are meant to go. Consider this further. If everything is determined by prior causes, what does that mean for responsibility? If you are not truly free to choose your actions, can you be held accountable for them? If your choices were determined by your genetics, your upbringing, your society, and every moment leading up to this one, can you still be blamed for the consequences of your decisions? And if you are not responsible for your actions, what does that say about morality itself? If you are simply a product of your circumstances, then where does right and wrong begin and end? As you reflect on this, you realize that the paradox only deepens. If free will is an illusion and determinism is the truth, then the idea of personal identity itself begins to unravel. If you are not free to choose who you are, then who are you really? Are you just a series of reactions, a collection of past events playing out in real time? Can you truly be said to be anything at all, or are you merely the sum of external influences? This is where the true horror of this paradox lies. The more you reflect on your choices, the more you realize that they may never have truly been your own. You are trapped in the illusion of freedom, when in fact, you are nothing more than the puppet of time, fate, and cause and effect. But as you stand at the crossroads, the question remains. If your choices are determined, then who or what is making those decisions? Is it you, or is it something else? The universe, fate, your biology, or something deeper and more hidden than you can ever comprehend? The paradox of simulated reality. Imagine that the world around you, the air you breathe, the ground you walk on, the very thoughts in your mind, are all part of an elaborate simulation. What if everything you perceive, every sensation you feel, is merely an intricate program, running on a system that you cannot comprehend? The people around you, the objects you interact with, and even your own consciousness are nothing more than data, manipulated by an unseen force. But here, the problem. How can you know it's a simulation if everything in the simulation feels real? This is the paradox of simulated reality. The very idea of a simulated existence challenges everything we know about reality. If everything around you is a simulation, then how can you trust anything you experience? Every thought, every memory, every piece of knowledge is potentially fabricated. And yet, everything feels so real. You think, you feel, you experience. The senses that make up your reality could be nothing more than illusions. A meticulously constructed world that only appears to exist. The concept of a simulated reality is not new. It's a philosophical and scientific idea that has been discussed by thinkers for centuries. The most famous of these is the simulation hypothesis, proposed by philosopher Nick Bostrom, which suggests that if it is possible to create simulations of conscious beings, then it is highly probable that we are living in one right now. Imagine for a moment, if advanced civilizations in the future can create such simulations, then it stands to reason that there are countless simulations running at any given moment, simulations within simulations. So how can you be sure that you are not merely part of one of these virtual worlds? Here, where the paradox deepens. If we are living in a simulation, then the very laws of nature, the ones that govern everything from the motion of the planets to the intricacies of human behavior, are not laws at all. They are simply rules of the game, programmed by an external creator. The world you know is not governed by the immutable forces of nature, but by artificial constraints designed to mimic the appearance of reality. This revelation raises a chilling question. What is the nature of the reality that exists beyond the simulation? The more you think about it, the more you realize that the line between the real world and the simulated world begins to blur. If you experience pain, joy, love, or fear, if you feel as though you have consciousness, then what difference does it make whether you are living in a simulation or not? Is the experience any less real just because it was created by someone else? After all, you are living it, aren't you? Every thought, every moment, every breath is yours to experience, whether it's fabricated or not. But then again, if it is all artificial, what does it say about the nature of you? If you are nothing more than a program running on a complex system, does your consciousness hold any true significance? This is the terrifying realization. You may not be the one in control of your own existence. Every decision you make, every thought you have, could be influenced by the parameters of the simulation itself. If the simulation is truly sophisticated, then it could account for every possibility, every action, every choice you might make. Your free will, your sense of self, could all be illusions, carefully crafted by the creators of the simulation to make you feel real, to make you believe that you are more than just a series of responses to the system. Now consider this. If you are living in a simulation, how do you escape it? Can you even perceive the world outside the simulation? What would that world look like, and how would you know it if you were so deeply embedded in the simulation? It's like being in a dream that feels so real, so complete, that you forget you're dreaming. You cannot wake up because you don't even know you're asleep. The more you contemplate this paradox, the more you realize that the very nature of reality is at stake. What is real? If a simulation can create such vivid experiences, emotions, thoughts, interactions, then how can you be sure that anything you experience is truly real? How can you trust your senses, your thoughts, or even your own existence? This paradox leads to an even darker thought. If everything you experience is part of a simulation, then what is the purpose of your existence? Are you merely an experiment, a data point in a grand system, or do you have a deeper significance in the context of the simulation? Are you just a means to an end, a character in a story written by someone else? And if you are part of a simulation, what does that say about the creators? Are they gods, or simply advanced beings playing a game with lives they can control and manipulate? And now, the most chilling question of all. If you are living in a simulation, can you ever truly know the truth? The paradox of the infinite universe. You are lying on your back, staring up at the night sky. The stars shimmer above you, countless pinpricks of light, each one a distant sun. You wonder about the vastness of the universe, how it stretches on infinitely, seemingly without end. How could anything exist in such an endless expanse? It's overwhelming to think that space, time, and existence itself may have no boundaries. But then the question arises, if the universe is infinite, then where does it begin? If it has no end, then can it ever truly begin? The very idea of infinity is unsettling. We live our lives bound by limits, time, space, our own consciousness. But infinity has no limits, no edges to touch, no boundaries to define it. And that is the heart of the paradox. If the universe is infinite, then there are infinite possibilities, endless stars, endless galaxies, endless versions of you. But the more you think about it, the more you realize that infinity is a concept that doesn't fit into our understanding of reality. How can something be infinite? How can anything exist without limits, without a defined boundary? The mind can grasp finite concepts, but the idea of an infinite, unending universe defies comprehension. Consider this. If the universe is truly infinite, then it contains an infinite number of stars, each potentially capable of supporting life. There are infinite planets orbiting infinite suns, and on those planets, there are infinite versions of events playing out simultaneously. Every choice you make, every thought you have, could be mirrored in another universe, just as real as the one you experience. But how do you reconcile the idea of infinity with your own perception of reality? Your experience is finite, bounded by time and space, limited by the physical laws of nature. So how do you fit into a universe that has no bounds? This paradox grows deeper when you consider the concept of the infinite within our own minds. Our perception of space and time is based on our senses, which are themselves limited by biology. We can never truly experience infinity because the human mind is too small to comprehend it. Even the idea of infinite space stretches the limits of imagination. When we think of an infinite universe, we are still conceptualizing it within the boundaries of our finite minds. So, is the universe truly infinite, or is it simply beyond our capacity to fully understand? But then, if the universe is infinite, does it even matter? Does the fact that there are infinite versions of you, infinite choices, infinite paths, really change anything about your life? You live in this moment, in this version of reality, with all its limitations and boundaries. Whether there are infinite versions of you doesn't change the fact that you are living in this one, with its rules and its finite nature. So, what does infinity really mean for you? Is it just a theoretical concept, a mind-bending idea that has no bearing on your actual experience? And what of the universe's beginning? If it is infinite, can it even have a beginning? All our understanding of the universe, of creation, of time, of existence itself, is built on the idea of a beginning. But what happens when you remove that beginning? What if the universe has always been, with no start, no end? How can something exist eternally without a reason for being? The paradox of an infinite universe is that it doesn't fit the narrative we've constructed for existence itself. We are used to things having a start and an end, a cause and an effect. But infinity has no cause, no origin. It just is. This leads to a deeper question. If the universe is infinite, then what is the meaning of anything at all? If there is no beginning and no end, if every possible outcome already exists, then does anything have true value? Is there any significance to your existence, to the choices you make, to the life you live, if there are infinite versions of the same thing playing out across infinite space? The more you think about it, the more you realize that infinity has no purpose, no meaning, no explanation. It is simply endless, without reason or resolution. And here lies the core of the paradox. In an infinite universe, what is the point of anything? Does your life matter if there are infinite versions of you in an infinite number of realities? Does anything you do have meaning when everything is already played out in an infinite number of ways? The endlessness of the universe threatens to swallow up any sense of significance, leaving you feeling small and insignificant in the face of a cosmos without end. The paradox of perception and reality. You are walking through a dense forest, the air thick with the scent of earth and pine. As you step carefully between the trees, you notice the shadows playing on the ground, shifting with the angle of the sun. The leaves rustle gently above, the distant chirping of birds filling the silence. You feel calm, connected to the world around you. But suddenly, a question arises. How do you know the forest is real? You stop in your tracks, the question sinking into your mind. The forest feels so vivid, so present, but can you trust your senses? Every sound you hear, every sight you see, every feeling you have, are they truly reflections of the external world, or are they mere projections of your mind? This is the paradox of perception and reality. How do you know what is real when everything you experience is filtered through the lens of your own mind? The very fact that you question reality begins to unravel the certainty you once held. Your senses, which you rely on to navigate the world, are not perfect. They are shaped by biology, by your brain's interpretation of signals received from your eyes, ears, and skin. Your perception of color, sound, and even time is a construct, a filtered version of what is actually out there in the world. Your brain takes the raw data from your senses and processes it, creating a reality that feels real, but may not be entirely accurate. Consider this. You are staring at a tree in front of you. You see its green leaves, its rough bark, and its solid trunk. You know the tree is real, but are you sure? How do you know that the tree you see is the same tree that someone else sees, or that it exists as you perceive it? Your brain interprets light waves and creates the color green. But does green really exist, or is it just a sensation in your mind? A label for the frequency of light being reflected off the tree. This is the essence of the paradox. You cannot directly experience the world as it truly is. You are always interpreting, always filtering. What you call reality is not reality at all. It is a representation created by your brain. And if your perception is not reality, then what is the true nature of the world? Can you ever truly know it? Or are you, like a character in a dream, forever locked in a version of the world that is shaped by your own mind? To take this even further, consider the nature of time. You experience time in a linear fashion, moments passing from past to present to future. But time, like everything else you perceive, is not something you can directly touch or see. It is a construct of your consciousness, a way your mind organizes events and experiences. In reality, time may not be a continuous, unbroken flow. It could be an illusion, a way for your brain to make sense of the world. If this is true, then time itself is not a fact of the universe, but a mental model, a perception that helps you navigate your existence. What then does this mean for your perception of yourself? Your identity, your sense of self, is shaped by your thoughts, your memories, and your experiences. But these too are filtered through your mind. Every thought you have is colored by your past, by your desires, and by your current state of mind. You cannot experience yourself outside of these filters. The self you think you know, the identity you cling to, is not the true you. It is just a mental construct, a series of thoughts and impressions built over time. So what does this mean for your understanding of reality? If your mind shapes everything you experience, can you ever trust your senses, your thoughts, or even your own perception of the world? The paradox deepens. The more you try to grasp the true nature of reality, the more you realize that you are forever locked within the limits of your own perception. You are trapped in a world of your mind's making, unable to truly see what lies beyond it. And here's the darkest question. If everything you experience is a product of your mind, then what is the true nature of reality itself? Is it something outside of you, waiting to be discovered? Or is it something that exists only within the confines of your consciousness? Are you experiencing the world as it truly is? Or are you living in a dream, a shadow of something far greater than you can ever know? The paradox of truth and belief. You are sitting in a room filled with people. A conversation is unfolding around you, and the topic is something familiar to you, a truth that you've held for years. The conversation grows heated as differing opinions clash. One person speaks passionately, presenting facts that challenge everything you thought you knew. They provide evidence, logic, and reason, yet you feel the truth slipping away. The thought arises, what if what I believe is not actually true? This is the paradox of truth and belief. The truth you hold to be self-evident, the beliefs you cling to as irrefutable, are shaped not just by reality, but by your mind, your experiences, and your interpretation of the world. What you call truth may not be objective at all. It may simply be the reality you have created, filtered through your perceptions, your biases, and your desires. At the core of this paradox is the unsettling realization that truth is not as absolute as we would like to believe. We think of truth as something objective, something external, something waiting to be discovered. But what if truth is not a singular, unchanging entity, but a fluid, subjective experience, shaped by the observer? What if the very concept of truth is bound by the limits of human understanding? Consider this. Every belief you hold, every conviction that defines you, is the result of your personal experiences, upbringing, culture, and environment. Your sense of what is true has been shaped by everything you've encountered throughout your life. But does that make your truth the truth? How can you be sure that your perspective is the one that accurately reflects reality? Take, for example, a simple event, something you've witnessed with your own eyes. You could describe it in great detail, confident that you know exactly what happened. Yet, another person who was there may have a completely different recollection, shaped by their own perspective and biases. Their version of the truth is just as valid to them as yours is to you, but how can both accounts be true? And if both versions are true, what does that say about the nature of truth itself? This paradox grows deeper when we consider the role of belief in shaping truth. You may believe something to be true, and because you believe it, you experience it as real. Your beliefs influence your perceptions, which in turn shape your experience of the world. The truth you perceive is not an objective fact. It is a reality constructed by your mind, shaped by what you choose to believe. But here lies the core of the paradox. What happens when your beliefs conflict with someone else's truth? If truth is subjective, then how can we ever know which version is real? What happens when two people believe completely different things, both convinced that they are right? If truth is fluid and subjective, then there can be no ultimate authority on what is true. no matter how much evidence is presented. No matter how logical the argument, truth becomes something that can be molded, manipulated, and interpreted. This creates a deep sense of uncertainty. If truth is not fixed, if it is shaped by the observer, then how can we ever be certain of anything? How can we trust our beliefs, our perceptions, or even our own experiences when they are filtered through the subjective lens of our mind? The very foundation of what we consider to be truth begins to crumble. And here's the darkest realization of all. If truth is shaped by belief, and belief is influenced by perception, then can we ever truly know anything at all? Every piece of knowledge we acquire, every truth we hold to be self-evident, is colored by our own biases and interpretations. There is no pure truth, only truths that are shaped by the individual, by their experiences, by their mind. As you sit with this realization, a haunting question emerges. If truth is nothing more than a reflection of what we believe, then how can we ever know if what we believe is real? The line between truth and illusion becomes blurred, and you are left questioning everything you've ever known. The paradox of time's nonlinearity. You are sitting at a quiet cafe, sipping a warm cup of coffee. The world moves around you, people coming and going, the ebb and flow of life unfolding with each passing moment. Time seems to tick by, moving steadily forward, second by second, minute by minute. You glance at your watch and, for a brief moment, you feel comforted by the certainty that time is constant, linear, and predictable. But then a thought strikes you. What if time doesn't flow in a straight line at all? This is the paradox of time's nonlinearity. The way we perceive time, the steady march from past to present to future, may not reflect the true nature of time itself. What if time is not a continuous, unidirectional force, but a complex, multidimensional phenomenon? What if the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously, interconnected in ways that our perception cannot fully comprehend? Consider the idea that time is not as we experience it. The famous theory of relativity proposed by Einstein suggests that time is relative. It can stretch and compress depending on your speed, your location, and your frame of reference. But beyond this, there is an even more unsettling possibility. What if time itself is not a straight line, but a vast, interconnected web where all moments exist at once? The past, the present, and the future may not be separate, but rather interwoven into a single, timeless whole. Imagine this. You are standing in a room, and as you look around, you realize that the walls, the floor, and the ceiling are all made of moments, snapshots of time, frozen in place. Each moment exists independently, yet they are all connected, existing together in a single point. The past is not gone. It is right there, alongside the present as a part of the same reality. The future is not waiting for you. It is already unfolding, just out of reach, yet somehow part of the same continuum. Now think about your memories. You recall a moment from your childhood, a vivid, detailed memory. You can see the colors, hear the sounds, feel the emotions you experienced. But in that moment, where does the memory exist? Is it truly part of the past, or is it simply another moment existing alongside the present? Your memory doesn't feel distant. It feels real, as if it is happening again. This suggests that time may not be linear in the way we think. What we perceive as the past is not actually gone. It is merely experienced differently, in a different form. And what we think of as the future may not be a distant unknown, but an already existing reality, waiting for us to experience it. The paradox deepens when you consider the nature of cause and effect. In our everyday experience, we believe that the future is shaped by the past, that events unfold in a logical, linear progression. But what if this isn't true? What if events aren't caused by what came before, but are instead connected in a more complex, non-linear way? Imagine that every moment, every event, exists independently but is interconnected with every other moment. The past does not cause the future, and the future does not follow the past in a straight line. Instead, time is a web with every event, every decision, and every moment existing as part of a vast, interconnected structure, all influencing each other in ways we cannot fully comprehend. This raises a chilling possibility. What if free will itself is an illusion? If time is not linear, if every moment exists simultaneously, then our decisions may not be as free as we think. Our sense of choice could be a construct of our minds, a way for us to make sense of the interconnectedness of time. The path we take may not be one of free will, but one already woven into the fabric of time. Our actions may already be part of the web, existing as inevitabilities within a non-linear structure. And here's the darkest implication. If time is not linear, then is the past, the present, and the future all the same? Is everything we've ever experienced, everything that is yet to come, all part of a single, timeless whole? And if so, what does this say about our perception of reality? Are we truly experiencing life as it happens, or are we simply following a script, living through moments that are already set in place, unable to escape the web of time? As you contemplate this paradox, you begin to realize that time itself may not be something that can be understood in terms of cause and effect, past and future. It may be something far more complex, something that transcends our ability to perceive it. The comforting certainty of linear time begins to slip away, replaced by the unsettling notion that time is not something we can control, but something that controls us. The question that lingers, unanswered and unsettling. If time is not linear, then what does it mean to truly live in the present? The paradox of consciousness. You sit quietly in a room, surrounded by the hum of the world. The sounds of life continue without interruption, people talking, cars passing by, the rustling of leaves outside the window. But in that moment, all of it fades into the background as you become acutely aware of something, your own consciousness. You are aware that you are aware. This simple realization that you know you exist is both profound and unsettling. But as you sit with the thought, the paradox begins to unfold. How can you be conscious of anything if consciousness itself cannot be fully understood? This is the paradox of consciousness. The very thing that defines your existence, your ability to think, to perceive, to experience, cannot be fully grasped or explained. You experience the world through your consciousness, yet you cannot separate yourself from it to fully understand what it is. How can you study the thing that is studying the world? How can you analyze the very process that enables you to analyze? Your consciousness is the lens through which you see everything, yet you cannot step outside of it to observe it clearly. The paradox deepens when you consider the nature of self-awareness. You know that you exist because you are aware of yourself, aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your perceptions. But what does it mean to be aware? What is it that is experiencing these thoughts and sensations? You can point to your brain, to the physical processes occurring within it, but does that explain consciousness? Does the firing of neurons create awareness, or is consciousness something more? Is it something that transcends the physical? Consider the idea of artificial intelligence. Machines can be programmed to perform tasks, to learn, to process information, but can they ever be truly conscious? Can they ever experience the world as we do, with a sense of self and awareness? Or are they just complex algorithms mimicking the process of thought, without the underlying experience that consciousness provides? And if a machine can never be conscious, does that make consciousness something inherently human? Or is it something that exists beyond biology altogether? This brings us to an even darker thought. If we cannot fully understand consciousness, then can we truly know anything at all? Every thought you have, every perception you experience, is filtered through the lens of your own consciousness. You have no access to the outside world beyond what your mind allows you to perceive. You cannot be certain that anything outside of your consciousness is even real, because your mind is the only thing you can truly know. The rest of the world exists only as a representation in your mind. The world you experience is shaped by your senses, by your perception, by your thoughts. But what if those are not a true reflection of reality at all? What if everything you know is just a projection of your mind, and consciousness is merely a way to make sense of it? The paradox becomes even more unsettling when you realize that the act of asking about consciousness may be a reflection of the very nature of consciousness itself. Consciousness is self-reflective. It is the thing that can observe itself, ask questions, and seek understanding. But if consciousness is self-reflective, then is it possible to ever truly understand it? Can the observer ever understand itself fully, or is it forever beyond reach, an enigma locked within its own depths? You begin to wonder, if consciousness is beyond understanding, then is there any point in trying to comprehend it? The more you seek to understand the nature of your own awareness, the more you realize that it cannot be understood through the tools of the mind. It is not something that can be grasped by intellect or analysis. It is something that you can only experience. But the experience itself is the very thing that eludes you. You are living in a world where your own consciousness is both your greatest asset and your greatest limitation. It defines you, shapes you, but it also traps you in a loop of self-reflection that prevents you from ever truly knowing its nature. The most unsettling question arises. If consciousness cannot be understood, then what does that say about our understanding of the universe itself? Are we doomed to live in a world where we can never fully know anything, because our very capacity to know is limited by the nature of the mind itself? The paradox of identity and change. You stand in front of a mirror, staring at your reflection. You see yourself clearly, your face, your posture, the eyes that seem to look back at you with recognition. This is you. You are the same person you've always been, aren't you? The same thoughts, the same memories, the same sense of self. But as you look closer, something strange happens. Who is the person in the mirror? The reflection is you, but it is. You've changed over the years, your body, your thoughts, your experiences. The person you were yesterday is not the same person you are today. In fact, the person you are now is only a fleeting version of the person you will become. This is the paradox of identity and change. You are the same, and yet you are not the same. Every moment, every experience, every thought shifts and alters who you are. But despite the constant changes, you still maintain a sense of continuity, a sense of self. How can this be? If you change so continuously, so fundamentally, how can you still be the same person? Consider this: you are constantly evolving. Your body is made of cells that regenerate, constantly replacing themselves. Your thoughts and beliefs shift as you experience new things. Your memories, too, are fluid, shaped by time, emotion, and the passage of experience. But if all of these things are constantly changing, how can you be the same person from one moment to the next? How do you hold on to a sense of self when every part of you is in a state of flux? It becomes even more unsettling when you realize that the very concept of identity is an illusion. We think of ourselves as fixed entities, as beings with a stable, coherent identity. But in reality, your identity is not something solid. It is something that is continually reconstructed by your mind. The you that you are in this moment is a product of your past experiences, your memories, your thoughts, and your physical state. But as time moves forward, each of these things shifts. The person you were yesterday is not the same person you are today, even though you experience continuity through your own sense of self. This paradox deepens when you consider the nature of personal change. If your identity is constantly evolving, then are you truly in control of it? Is the person you think you are a product of conscious choice, or is it simply the result of a series of unconscious influences, a chain of events set in motion long before you were born? If you are not truly the same from one moment to the next, then can you ever truly know yourself? Can you ever hold onto a stable sense of who you are? The paradox grows even more disturbing when you reflect on the passage of time. You look back at your life and see the person you once were, the things you once believed, the dreams you once had. But those things no longer define you. You are someone different now, shaped by the experiences you've lived through, the choices you've made. But then you begin to wonder, who were you really? If you are constantly changing, how can you ever truly know your own identity? What happens to the you that is lost in the process of change? Is that version of you still a part of you, or has it disappeared entirely, replaced by someone new? This leads to a chilling thought. If you are not the same person from one moment to the next, then can you ever truly be said to exist in any meaningful way? What does it mean to be you, if your identity is a shifting, ephemeral thing, constantly changing and evolving? Are you merely a series of fleeting moments, a collection of experiences that never quite add up to anything coherent? Can you ever truly define yourself, or are you forever caught in a paradox of identity and change? As you contemplate these questions, the paradox deepens. If your identity is always changing, is there anything that truly defines you? If you are not the same person from one moment to the next, then what does it mean to say, "I am"? What is the essence of yourself if it is constantly being rewritten, constantly evolving? And if you cannot define yourself, then how can you ever understand the nature of who you truly are? The paradox of eternal return. You are walking along a quiet, deserted path, the ground beneath your feet soft and familiar. The air is still and everything seems peaceful. But then the thought crosses your mind. What if this moment right here is not the only time it's happened? What if every moment, every action, every decision you've made will repeat itself infinitely, over and over again, for all eternity? This is the paradox of eternal return. The idea that every moment, every experience you go through will inevitably repeat itself endlessly. Imagine that the life you are living right now, this very moment, this conversation, these thoughts, is not a singular, unique experience, but one that is destined to repeat, to be relived in infinite cycles, with nothing ever changing. Every choice, every word, every step you take is predetermined to repeat itself forever. You will live the same life, the same sequence of events eternally. The path you walk is not a journey towards some unknown end, but an endless loop, spiraling back on itself, never truly moving forward. The unsettling aspect of this paradox lies in the certainty that every moment of your life will be relived. What if the people you meet, the events you experience, the decisions you make, everything you know, is nothing more than an unbreakable cycle? What if every thought you have, every feeling you experience is destined to occur again and again without variation? The idea of time as a linear progression begins to shatter. There is no beginning, no end, only repetition. Now let's think about this paradox from another angle. If everything is destined to repeat itself infinitely, does that render life meaningless? If nothing changes, if nothing progresses, what is the point of living at all? Each decision you make, each moment you experience becomes nothing more than a rerun of a moment you have already lived, and one you will live again. You are caught in an endless loop with no escape, unable to alter the course of your life. The sense of freedom you once believed in, the belief that you can choose your path, is stripped away. If every action is predetermined, if every choice is destined to repeat, then what is the point of making any choice at all? But the paradox deepens. What if the eternal return is not just limited to your own life, but to the entire universe? What if every star, every galaxy, every particle in the universe is bound by this same eternal cycle? What if the universe itself is stuck in an infinite loop, a repetition of the same events over and over again, without ever changing or evolving? Every cosmic event, the birth and death of stars, the rise and fall of civilizations, happens again and again and again with no end in sight. As you grapple with this, the unsettling truth begins to emerge. If life is an endless repetition, what does that mean for the very concept of time itself? Time as you know it, a continuous flow from past to present to future, begins to dissolve. If everything is destined to return, then time is not a progression but a cyclical loop. The future is not unknown. It is already set to repeat the past. And so the question becomes, if time is infinite and eternal, then is anything truly original? Every experience, every sensation is nothing more than a recycled moment, an echo of something that has already been lived. In this view, the idea of change, of progress, is meaningless. Everything that happens is just a shadow of what has come before, destined to be repeated again. And here is the final haunting thought. If everything is destined to repeat, if the universe itself is bound to an eternal return, what does it mean to live a meaningful life? If you cannot escape this cycle, if every decision you make is predetermined, then can your actions ever have true significance? Are you just a puppet in an infinite play, destined to perform the same roles over and over again, with no real choice or change? The concept of purpose, of meaning, becomes impossible to grasp. Every moment of your life becomes nothing more than a part of an endless loop, repeating infinitely in the same patterns. As you reflect on the paradox of eternal return, you are left with a chilling, unresolved question. If every moment of your life is destined to repeat, does that mean you truly live? Or are you merely an echo of something that has already happened? The paradox of the unknowable. You sit quietly in a dark room, the silence around you pressing in. In front of you is a book, its pages filled with symbols, words, and knowledge, each one meant to reveal something about the world. You open the book, and with each page you turn, you feel yourself growing closer to understanding the nature of the universe, of life, and of existence itself. But then, as you near the end of the book, a thought hits you. What if the answers to everything are forever beyond your reach? What if the nature of existence, the meaning of life, and the truth of reality are not something you will ever understand? This is the paradox of the unknowable, the idea that there are limits to what can ever be known, and that some truths will always remain beyond human comprehension. You can search, you can learn, you can explore the deepest corners of reality, but there will always be things that remain hidden, unknowable, inaccessible to your mind. The more you seek answers, the more you realize that there are questions that have no answer. The deeper you look into the nature of reality, the more you discover the vastness of what is beyond your grasp. Consider the vastness of the universe. We live on a small planet in a corner of a galaxy, which itself is part of an even greater cosmos. Every day, scientists make new discoveries, planets, stars, galaxies, black holes, uncovering new layers of reality. Yet, despite all this knowledge, we have only scratched the surface. The universe is vast beyond comprehension, and much of it remains a mystery, hidden by the limitations of our perception and technology. The more we discover, the more we realize that we are just beginning to understand the universe's true nature. And yet, even with all our advancements, there are still mysteries we will never solve. What if there are aspects of the universe that simply cannot be understood by the human mind? What if there are truths about existence that exist outside the boundaries of our perception, beyond the reach of our senses, our intellect, and our technology? The more we strive for understanding, the more we are confronted with the reality that some things are unknowable, forever hidden behind a veil that we cannot pierce. But this paradox does not just apply to the cosmos. It extends to the very nature of our existence. Who are we really? What is the true nature of consciousness, of self-awareness? We experience life from the inside out, but we cannot fully understand the processes that allow us to think, feel, and perceive. The brain, the organ that defines our thoughts and experiences, remains an enigma. We know how it works on a basic level, but we have no idea how it creates consciousness, the very thing that allows us to ask questions and seek understanding. This leads to an unsettling realization. If we cannot even understand our own minds, what does that say about our ability to understand the universe? Our thoughts, our experiences, our very perception of reality are all filtered through the lens of our consciousness, a lens that we cannot step outside of to fully observe. We are trapped in our own minds, unable to access the full scope of what lies beyond. The paradox grows even darker as you consider the possibility that the unknowable is not just a matter of human limitation, but a fundamental aspect of reality itself. What if there are truths that cannot be known because they are beyond the scope of any mind, human or otherwise? What if the very nature of the universe is such that some things will always remain hidden, eternally out of reach, like the farthest stars in the sky? If this is the case, then perhaps seeking the ultimate truth is a fool's errand, an endless pursuit of something that is not meant to be found. Now think about this. If there are things that are fundamentally unknowable, then what does that mean for your search for meaning and purpose in life? If there are aspects of existence that are beyond your comprehension, then can you ever truly know the meaning of your own life? Is the search for meaning itself an illusion, a never-ending journey toward a destination that will always be just beyond the horizon? And here is the deepest question of all. If there are things that can never be known, what does it mean to live a life of seeking and questioning? If some truths are forever hidden, then what does it say about your quest for knowledge and understanding? Are you simply wandering in the dark, searching for something that can never be found? Is the pursuit of truth itself a futile endeavor, one that can never be fully realized? The paradox of existence without purpose. You sit quietly in a vast, empty space. No sounds, no movement, just a profound silence that envelops you. The question comes to you, unbidden, what is the purpose of it all? You think about your life, the choices you've made, the paths you've taken. You've been told by philosophers, by society, by religion that life has purpose, that every action you take, every experience you go through is part of some greater meaning. But now, in this empty space, the question persists. What if there is no purpose at all? This is the paradox of existence without purpose. The idea that life, the universe, and everything within it might exist without any inherent meaning or purpose. You've been taught that purpose is what drives everything, that there is a reason for each event, each individual, each moment. But what if that's an illusion? What if the universe is simply a vast expanse of randomness, where events happen not because they are meant to, but because they simply do? What if existence itself has no reason, no grand design, and no inherent meaning? It's a terrifying thought to consider. If life has no purpose, then what does that mean for you? For your relationships, your aspirations, your struggles, all the things you value, love, success, fulfillment, are they simply constructs created by your mind to give life some semblance of meaning? If existence itself is devoid of purpose, then everything you've ever known, everything you've ever worked toward, could be nothing more than a fleeting illusion. But here, where the paradox deepens, if life has no purpose, then does that mean you are free to define your own meaning? In a universe devoid of inherent purpose, could you, as an individual, create your own reason for being? On the surface, this seems empowering. If the universe is indifferent, then you are free to shape your own existence. But what if, in the absence of purpose, you are left with nothing to guide you? No external force, no inherent meaning, just a blank canvas. In the absence of any higher purpose, what would you choose to fill your life with? Would you create your own meaning, Or would the weight of the void overwhelm you? The paradox intensifies when you reflect on this. If there is no cosmic plan, no grand design to existence, then everything you experience, your hopes, your fears, your triumphs, and your failures, becomes meaningless in the grand scheme of things. If the universe has no inherent meaning, then your life, your very existence, is simply a speck in the infinite void. It's a humbling thought, a thought that shakes the very foundation of everything you've built your understanding upon. But here's the question that truly unsettles you. If there is no inherent purpose, can you ever escape the existential weight of that realization? Every decision you make, every step you take, every breath you draw becomes an act of defiance against the vast, indifferent universe. You live your life as though it matters, as though there is meaning, but deep down, you know that all of it could be a temporary construct, a fleeting distraction from the nothingness that surrounds you. And yet, the more you think about it, the more you realize that the paradox isn't just about the absence of purpose. It's about how you choose to live in the face of that absence. If the universe is indifferent, then perhaps the true meaning of life is found not in some higher purpose, but in the simple act of living. The very fact that you exist, that you have awareness, becomes a statement in itself. Maybe there is no grand reason for your existence, but that doesn't mean you can't create your own reason for being. But that brings forth another paradox. Is it possible to create meaning in a universe where no meaning exists? Can you truly define purpose for yourself? Or are you merely playing a game of illusion to fill the void? And now, the haunting question. If life has no inherent purpose, and you must create your own meaning, then what does that say about your freedom? Is it liberation, or is it a prison? A never-ending search for meaning in a universe that may never provide the answers you seek. The paradox of the observer and the observed. You find yourself standing in a vast, infinite space. It feels as though the universe stretches out in every direction, beyond the limits of your perception. There are no boundaries, no walls to confine you, just the endless expanse of existence. The silence is overwhelming, but your mind races, asking questions. Who is observing this vast, endless space? And who is being observed? This is the paradox of the observer and the observed. The notion that the very act of observation alters the thing being observed, and that the observer is forever bound to their own perception of the world. It suggests that there is no objective reality outside of what we perceive, that the act of observing brings into existence the very reality we experience. But if this is true, then who is the observer, and what is the nature of the observed? You cannot escape the fact that you are the observer, but who or what is the observed? Is it the world around you, the trees, the sky, the stars? Or is it your own mind, your own consciousness, that is the true subject of observation? If you are the one observing, then what does it mean for the world to be real? If reality exists only in the moment of perception, is it truly independent of you, or is it nothing more than a reflection of your own consciousness? Now consider this. Every thought you have is observed by you. Every sensation you feel is experienced by you. But are these thoughts and feelings a part of the world outside of you, or are they just products of your mind? You can never experience the world without your perception shaping it. Every interaction with reality is filtered through the lens of your consciousness. If you are both the observer and the observed, then can you ever truly know what is real? Or are you simply trapped in a loop of perception, where nothing exists except what you perceive? The paradox grows even darker when you reflect on the implications for the nature of existence itself. If the world exists only as it is observed, then does it truly exist when you are not observing it? When you close your eyes, when you are not aware of something, does it cease to exist? If perception creates reality, then does that mean the world is nothing more than a creation of your mind, an illusion brought to life by your awareness? This question becomes even more unsettling. If reality is a creation of perception, then how can we trust anything we experience? Can we ever truly know the world, or are we trapped in a subjective reality that is shaped by our senses and biases? The very idea of objectivity crumbles when you consider that the observer is always present, shaping and defining the world with each thought, each observation. But here's the deepest question. If reality is shaped by the observer, then who is the true observer? Is it the mind, the self, or something beyond it? If your perception shapes the world, then who is observing the observer? Is there a point where observation ceases to be subjective? Or is the act of observing, being aware of one's own perception, an endless loop, where no objective truth can ever be known? The paradox of the observer and the observed forces you to confront the limits of perception and the nature of reality itself. Are you merely a player in a world of your own creation, or is there a greater reality beyond what you can see, touch, and feel? Can you ever step outside of your own mind to see the world as it truly is? Or are you forever trapped in a self-reflective loop of observation, unable to access the objective truth? Or the paradox of infinity and nothingness. You stand at the edge of a vast chasm, an endless abyss that stretches out before you. The space between you and the darkness seems to go on forever, a void so immense that it defies comprehension. You peer into the void and wonder, what is it that exists in the space of nothingness? This is the paradox of infinity and nothingness. The idea that infinite space exists alongside absolute emptiness, that two seemingly opposing concepts, limitless vastness and complete absence, are inextricably linked. How can something be infinite and empty at the same time? How can there be a vast expanse of nothing? And if nothingness exists, what is the nature of the space it occupies? You try to grasp the concept of infinity. It is vast, boundless, without beginning or end. But the more you think about it, the more you realize that infinity is not just an abstract idea. It is something that can exist in theory in the very fabric of the universe. Space itself is infinite, or so it seems, stretching out beyond what we can observe, filled with galaxies, stars, and uncountable possibilities. But then, at the same time, there is nothingness, complete, absolute voids of space where nothing exists. These vast voids of emptiness occupy space, and yet they contain no matter, no energy, no form. How can infinity exist in such emptiness? This is the core of the paradox. The concept of infinity and nothingness coexists, intertwined in ways that we cannot fully comprehend. You cannot have one without the other. The infinite universe would not exist without the voids, the emptiness between the stars, the space that separates everything. The infinite expanse of space depends on the existence of nothingness to define it. Yet, if nothingness is truly empty, what gives it the substance to exist at all? Now think about the idea of time. Time, like space, is often imagined as infinite, moving endlessly forward, stretching without end. But what does it mean for time to be infinite? If time is truly infinite, then does it even have meaning? Every moment, every second would stretch forever, with no beginning and no end. Time would lose its urgency, its flow, its structure. Without an end, there is no reason for anything to happen. But then again, if time is infinite, what does the beginning of time even mean? Is there a moment when it starts? Or is time itself just a loop, forever repeating with no true origin? This paradox stretches even further when you consider existence itself. If the universe is infinite, and if time stretches forever, then is there ever a true beginning to anything? Are we merely repeating cycles, living in an eternal return, endlessly experiencing the same moments over and over again without ever truly progressing? The question emerges: if everything is infinite, then what is the meaning of anything at all? If there are infinite possibilities, infinite versions of you, infinite universes, then how can anything have true significance? If everything is bound to repeat, if nothingness is the container for infinity, then what is the point of existence itself? As you struggle with this paradox, you are faced with the eerie realization that the more you try to understand infinity and nothingness, the more you are confronted with their inherent contradiction. Infinity is vast, limitless, and full of possibility, yet it cannot exist without the void, the emptiness that defines it. Nothingness, though, is the very thing that prevents infinity from collapsing into chaos, a blank canvas that holds everything together. But what holds the void itself together? What gives nothingness the structure to exist? The paradox of infinity and nothingness leaves you questioning the nature of the universe, the purpose of time, and the very fabric of existence. As you try to reconcile these two concepts, vastness and emptiness, you realize that you are forever trapped in a loop, unable to fully comprehend the true nature of either. The more you try to grasp infinity, the more you realize that it is bound to nothingness, a never-ending cycle of paradoxes with no resolution. The paradox of free will and fate. You are walking through a bustling city street, the noise of the world pressing in on all sides. People walk past you, each on their own journey, going somewhere, doing something. You glance around and think, where am I going? What am I doing? The question lingers, and you are suddenly struck by a realization. Do I truly have control over my life? This is the paradox of free will and fate, the belief that you are in control of your own life and the simultaneous feeling that you are swept along by forces beyond your control. If you are the one making decisions, choosing your path, then why do things sometimes seem so inevitable? How can you be free to choose if everything around you, every event, every person, every situation, seems to push you in a certain direction? You may feel like your life is your own to navigate, that you can make choices that will change your future. But then, every so often, you look back and wonder, was that really my choice? The paths you've taken seem to have been paved before you even arrived. The people you've met, the experiences you've had, did you really choose them, or were they always meant to be? The paradox becomes even more intense when you consider the idea of fate. What if your life was destined to unfold in a certain way, no matter what choices you made? What if every decision you've ever made was not truly free, but part of a greater plan, a pattern beyond your understanding? If fate is real, then does that mean your every action is predestined, and your sense of control is merely an illusion? Now, think about the idea of time. We often perceive time as a line, moving forward from the past to the future, with every moment unfolding in sequence. But what if time is not a straight line, but a web, where every action you take is connected to every other moment, and every event in your life is already determined in some sense? You may feel like you are moving forward, but could it be that you are simply following a path that has already been laid out? Every choice you make might seem like an act of free will, but in reality, it may be just another thread in a vast, interconnected web of fate. The paradox deepens when you think about the role of the universe itself. Is the universe a machine, running according to predetermined laws and patterns, where everything that happens is a consequence of prior causes? Or is the universe a vast, unpredictable system, governed by chaos and chance, where your choices truly matter? The tension between these two ideas, fate and free will, leaves you suspended, unsure of your own agency. But then comes the most unsettling thought. What if free will and fate are not opposites at all, but two sides of the same coin? What if your sense of free will is part of the greater design of fate? What if your decisions are both the result of your own choices and the result of forces beyond your understanding? In this view, fate does not negate free will, it includes it. Your choices are part of the grand design, just as every event in your life is connected to a larger pattern. And here's the final, chilling question. If your life is both shaped by fate and free will, then can you ever truly know whether you are in control, or if you are simply a player in a game that has already been decided? Are you free to make your choices, or are you simply following a path that was destined for you from the beginning? The very concept of free will begins to unravel as you wonder if your every choice is part of a predetermined fate. The paradox of self and the infinite other. You walk through a crowded street, people moving past you in all directions. You hear the sounds of conversation, the laughter of children, the hum of vehicles in the background. You are aware of yourself, of your body, your mind, your presence in the world. But as you walk, the thought strikes you. What if everything I am, everything I know, is not just the result of my own experience, but shaped by the existence of others? This is the paradox of self and the infinite other. The idea that who you are, your sense of self, is inextricably linked to the existence of everyone else around you. Yet, at the same time, you are an individual separate from them. You are defined not only by your own thoughts, experiences, and desires, but also by the actions, thoughts, and feelings of every other being that shares this world with you. The paradox emerges when you realize that without the presence of others, your identity may not even exist. But how can this be? How can the self, so intimately connected to the world, be separate at the same time? You think about your own identity. You are a person with desires, goals, memories, and dreams. You experience the world as you, as an individual. But what makes you you? Is it your thoughts, your memories, your emotions? And if so, are those things truly yours, or are they simply reflections of the world around you? Every thought you have is shaped by the people you interact with, the culture you are a part of, and the environment you inhabit. Your identity is not formed in isolation, but in the space between you and the infinite others who occupy the world with you. Consider your relationships, your family, your friends, your coworkers. These connections are part of your identity, yet they are not entirely yours. They exist in the interplay between your thoughts and the thoughts of others. Your sense of self is constructed through these interactions, through the way you are seen by the people around you and the way you see them. Without others, you would not be who you are. Your very identity depends on their existence. But here lies the paradox. If your identity is shaped by others, then who are you without them? Who are you in the absence of the infinite others who define your reality? This paradox deepens when you consider the concept of the infinite other. Every person you encounter is another world, another mind, another consciousness. They are not just passive participants in your life. They are active creators of your experience. Every conversation, every glance, every touch shapes who you are. The other is not just a reflection of yourself, but a separate entity with their own desires, thoughts, and experiences, each influencing you in ways you cannot fully comprehend. And here, where the paradox becomes truly unsettling. What if the infinite other is not just those around you, but everything in the universe? The trees, the stars, the oceans, everything exists in relationship with you. Your perception of the world is shaped by everything you encounter, by the infinite objects, beings, and phenomena that fill your existence. You are not separate from the world, but intimately connected to it. And yet, you are still an individual, distinct from everything else. The infinite web of connections that binds you to the world also separates you, creating a strange duality of unity and isolation. Now consider this. If the self is defined by the infinite other, then does the self even exist independently? What is the self if it is shaped by everything around it? Are you the sum of your experiences with others, or are you something more, something independent of those connections? If the self is shaped by the world, by the infinite other, then does it ever truly belong to you? Are you just a reflection of the world around you, or do you exist apart from it? The paradox deepens as you realize that you are both infinitely connected to the world and, at the same time, completely separate from it. You are the observer, the experiencer, but you are also part of the observed, part of the infinite web of existence. Your identity is neither completely your own nor entirely a product of others. It is a fluid, ever-changing interplay between the two, a paradox that can never be fully resolved. And here is the final, haunting question. If the self is both infinitely connected and infinitely separate, then what does it mean to truly know who you are? Can you ever truly know yourself? Or are you forever caught in the web of infinite others, each one shaping your identity in ways you can never fully understand?